China flexes military muscle as the Liaoning moves closer to Taiwan amid rising regional tensions. Xi Jinping sends a carrier group into the Western Pacific as fears of a Taiwan conflict continue to grow. PLA live fire drills trigger alarm across the region, intensifying concerns over China's expanding war preparations. Is Xi Jinping turning the Pacific into a warning zone aimed at deterring U.S. allies across the region? Is Beijing rehearsing for a potential Pacific confrontation involving the United States and Japan? Is China no longer hiding its ambitions as military power projection accelerates across the Indo-Pacific? China has deployed the Liaoning carrier group into the Western Pacific for extended live-fire naval exercises far from the mainland coastline. According to the People's Liberation Army Navy, the drills included tactical flight operations, live-fire events, and search and rescue missions conducted in open waters. Chinese military analyst Zhang Junxi said the exercises would improve realistic combat capabilities, according to Defense Security Asia. Zhang added that the drills also served as a strong deterrent against what Beijing describes as Taiwan independence forces in the region. The carrier deployment is believed to be operating near the Philippine Sea and waters east of the Bashi Channel. Chinese officials stated that the exercises are not directed at any specific country and are being conducted in accordance with international law. The Liaoning entered service in 2012 as the PLA Navy's first fully operational aircraft carrier platform. It uses a ski-jump-style flight deck configuration designed to support operations involving Shenyang J-15 fighter jets. The strike group includes guided missile destroyers, frigates, and embarked J-15 carrier fighters operating alongside the carrier. The deployment also includes rotary wing aviation units and long-range support operations to sustain missions at extended distances. Military analysts say the Liaoning is helping the PLA Navy develop a more integrated carrier strike group doctrine for future operations. Experts say Chinese operations east of Taiwan are intended to expand PLA Navy access to wider Pacific maritime routes. Military planners reportedly view waters east of Taiwan as strategically important in the event of any future regional conflict. China's growing naval presence is also increasing the complexity of defensive planning for Taiwan and its regional partners. The deployment is placing additional pressure on maritime routes frequently used by US and Japanese naval forces operating in the Pacific. Analysts say China is gradually normalizing military operations around Taiwan through repeated aircraft carrier deployments and patrol missions. The live-fire element of the drills is also viewed as a shift toward more realistic preparation for high-intensity combat scenarios. Japan has increased monitoring of PLA Navy movements near Okinawa and the Ryukyu Islands. Analysts warn that increasing military activity in crowded Pacific waters raises the possibility of miscalculation or unintended incidents. China's expanding aircraft carrier operations are increasingly viewed as a challenge to long-standing US-led naval dominance in the region. The latest deployment is also seen as part of China's transition from a coastal defense force into a broader global naval power. PLA Navy carrier groups are now operating farther from mainland logistical support than at any previous point in their development. Analysts say China's long-term objective is to build a navy capable of sustained operations across the wider Pacific theater. The exercises come amid heightened diplomatic activity in China, contributing to renewed concerns over tensions surrounding Taiwan. Beijing is delaying approval for proposed visit by the Pentagon's Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, putting a planned high-level dialogue on hold as officials await clearer signals from Washington about broader bilateral relations. Defense Undersecretary Elbridge Colby reportedly discussed making a summer trip to Beijing, indicating U.S. interest in maintaining direct military-to-military and policy channels despite rising tensions between the two capitals. Chinese officials have signaled they cannot approve the visit until President Trump decides how he will proceed with a contested arms package for Taiwan, tying diplomatic and defense exchanges to the outcome of that sensitive policy decision. Neither the Pentagon nor China's foreign ministry has issued an official statement about the proposed trip, leaving both the timing and the fate of the visit unclear as the situation remains diplomatically delicate. Details of the matter were reported by the Financial Times via Reuters on May 21st, underscoring how international media has been tracking the standoff and the potential diplomatic consequences of US actions. This development comes as China intensifies pressure on the United States over proposed $14 billion weapons package for Taiwan, framing the dispute as a core issue that could influence broader bilateral cooperation. President Trump had visited Beijing on May 14 to 15 for high-level talks with Xi Jinping, a trip that set expectations for improved communication, but has so far not resolved underlying strategic disagreements between the two leaders. After the trip, President Trump said he had not yet made a final decision on whether to proceed with the proposed weapons sale to Taiwan, leaving Washington's next steps deliberately open as both allies and adversaries watched for a signal. On May 20th, Trump told reporters that he planned to speak with Taiwan's president, Lai Ching-te, indicating an intention to maintain direct contact even as the broader policy question over arms transfers remained unresolved.
Do you have any plans to call President Lai of Taiwan before you make a decision on the weapons package?
I'll speak to him. I speak to everybody. We have that situation very well in hand. We had a great meeting with President Xi. It was amazing, actually. It was amazing. Many of you were there. We'll work on that, the Taiwan problem.
A formal call between the United States and Taiwan had not been scheduled at the time, Reuters reported, underscoring the cautious, tentative nature of any imminent high-level communication. On May 21st, Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te said he would be happy to speak to Trump, marking the pair's first conversation since Trump visited China on May 14th to 15th. Any direct conversation between US and Taiwan officials would likely provoke anger in Beijing, which regards official interactions with Taipei as a sensitive challenge to its sovereignty claims, the report added. US officials pointed out that during his tenure Trump has approved weapons sales to Taiwan more frequently than most other recent presidents, highlighting a pattern of robust arms commitments despite diplomatic friction. Under US law, Washington is required to provide Taiwan with the means to defend itself, a statutory obligation that frames and constrains American policy choices on military support for the island. Both Republican and Democratic lawmakers have urged the Trump administration to proceed with weapons sales, reflecting bipartisan congressional pressure to sustain Taiwan's defense capabilities amid growing regional tensions. Taiwan's defense minister, Wellington Koo, said he was cautiously optimistic about continued arms sales from the United States, expressing guarded hope while acknowledging the political sensitivities involved. Remember, during Trump's visit to Beijing, Xi Jinping issued a pointed warning to the United States, a reminder that the Chinese leadership can and will use strong rhetoric and leverage to influence Washington's decisions on Taiwan. The Taiwan issue emerged as a major point in talks that were otherwise dominated by the conflict involving Iran and the wider Middle East crisis. During their closed-door discussions, Xi warned Trump that US support for Taiwan, if pushed too far, could lead to clashes and conflicts between Washington and Beijing. He reportedly went further, saying that if the Taiwan issue was mishandled, the United States and China could come into conflict, leaving little doubt about where China's red lines lie. Subsequently, the official White House readout on the summit appeared to skip any mention of Taiwan, adding to the sense that the topic was too sensitive to spell out publicly. Trump also seemed to dodge a question on Taiwan during his choreographed visit to the Temple of Heaven with Xi, reinforcing the impression that he did not want to publicly provoke Beijing on camera.